Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't, I'm EDJ. So last time we covered the Battle of Nola from HistoryMarche's Hannibal series and Marcellus repelling Hannibal's attack on the city very well. And so now we'll see, but Hannibal won strategically because his goal was, to secure that point for Capua? So essentially Marcellus kind of won a minor victory, but Hannibal still got what he wanted at the end. So we'll see how Hannibal continues handling with the Romans, and if he's going to be battling them or if we're going to be covering something new. Either way, guys, if you want to watch the original video, link is down below. With that said, and without any further ado, let us watch the Battle of Cornus.
By the autumn period of 216 BC, Hannibal was consolidating his power base in southern Italy. His main army at Capua stood at around 40,000 men, including additions from his Samnite allies. His brother Mago, now on his way south with 1,200 Numidians, would recruit an additional 17,000 Lucanians and Bruttians, and bring his own force up to over 18,000 troops. Opposing them, Rome scrambled to raise new legions over the coming months. An impressive 80,000 troops would be put to field in Italy, with the majority concentrated in the south. But despite the Roman numerical strength exceeding that of their enemy, many of these were inexperienced recruits who felt abject terror at the thought of meeting Hannibal in battle. Worse, in some of the settlements of central Italy, the number of Roman and allied fighting men began to dwindle, which was a testament to the blood toll exacted on them by Hannibal's tactical superiority and his wealth of ideas on the battlefield. Fabius Maximus, the father of the Fabian strategy, would again be elected consul for the next 2 years. He would revert to avoiding conflict with the Carthaginian general to preserve the troops and give Rome's manpower time to recover. But while the war was thus far mostly dominated by the campaign of Hannibal in Italy, as the year 215 rolled around, the Second Punic War would spread across the Mediterranean. Look, you may enjoy how Hannibal dominated. While Hannibal worked to add to his list of allies, his other objective was reinforcements. His brother Mago advanced south and besieged Petelia. Together with Consentia, these two cities were among the most prominent in Bruttium, boasting a developed infrastructure, imposing walls, and a bustling city culture. In its quest to establish dominion over Italy, Rome favored the urban centers of Bruttium and had long been replacing their local ruling elite with the pro-Roman aristocracy. In turn, the pro-Roman factions of Petelia and Consentia treated the less urbanized communities in the region with disdain, which created a rift among Bruttians. Needless to say, these internal divisions suited Rome as they made the region easier to control. But Mago now used this hostile factionalism to his advantage. He circulated news that Petelia was besieged, prompting thousands of Bruttians, who were angry at the city for siding with Rome, to join Hannibal. With his work in Bruttium complete, Mago left Hanno the Elder in charge of the army and embarked for Carthage to seek support for the campaign in Italy. By this stage, neither side was the undisputed master of the sea. While Rome had overall superiority, the Carthaginian navy had significantly recovered from the setback earlier in the war. Both could patrol far into enemy waters and raid coastal towns, but lacked the strength to rule the waves of the western Mediterranean. But with most of Bruttium now under Hannibal's control, there was less risk for transporting troops from Africa to Italy. And with this, Mago disembarked in Carthage. Murmurs reverberated in the packed Senate hall. In attendance...
This is interesting, yeah, we haven't gotten much into what the heck's been going down in Carthage. And so yeah, it kind of seems like very stalematey now that Fabius is back, obviously. He's like, let us not fight Hannibal, like, And, so yeah, everyone is just gathering their strength, it seems. It seems like this is the breeder after all the bloodshed. And so now it's like, okay, who can, like, rally strength faster so we can start fighting again? So yeah, we'll see how he does.
All of Carthage's notables anxiously waited. Then Mago rose to speak, presenting before the Senate the progress of the campaign in Italy. Colleagues, countrymen, since crossing the Alps, Hannibal had won several victories, including 3 great pitched battles against Rome's main armies, 2 of which were completely destroyed and their camps looted. And now the Romans avoid fighting us altogether out of fear. 200,000 Roman fighting men are slain and 50,000 prisoners are taken. Italy is in a state of revolt, and the south had gone over to Hannibal. With a single army, Hannibal had achieved all of this against several Roman armies. Mago then turned away from the map to present to the Senate a bag filled with hundreds of golden rings belonging to the Roman aristocracy that fell at Cannae. He asked for funds and additional armies to be sent to Italy. With another 20 to 30,000 troops at his disposal, Hannibal would break Rome. Mago's presentation suggested that with the 18,000-strong army that he himself had recruited, consistent pressure could be applied in Bruttium until the last of the cities loyal to Rome either came to Hannibal's side or were taken by force. Another army of 20,000 from Carthage could take and hold Apulia and its vital ports, thereby cutting Rome's ability to contest the waters of the Ionian Sea. This would open lines of communication between Hannibal and a likely ally, Philip V of Macedon, enabling uninterrupted transport of ships, provisions, and troops.
Yeah, very, very sound. Mago is like, he's laying it all there. It's like, here's my PowerPoint presentation. Here's everything that could happen. All we need is your support. Let's see how Carthage screws this up. I kid, but also no. But, yeah.
Finally, stationed in Campania with his main host, Hannibal would have complete control over southern Italy. With 3 armies in close proximity, capable of quickly combining their forces, as well as controlling their respective areas individually, Carthaginian authority over local communities and cities would be absolute. As such, Hannibal could fully exploit southern Italy's manpower and resources to beat the Romans at their own game, the war of attrition, and could use his tactical brilliance to dominate the Romans on the battlefield. Hearing Mago's report, most of the Senate rejoiced. But, as fortunes of war would have it, Hannibal's worst enemies were not in Rome, but in Carthage.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major up.
I'm sighing already, cause I just know that. Yeah, I had heard when I was researching as to, hey, why didn't Carthage help Hannibal out more? Apparently, like I said, they were an oligarchy sort of thing. Not really, but the point is, their entire thing is they didn't want one guy getting too much power, and Hannibal, I guess some felt threatened by Hannibal, but I'm like, guys, you want to win, don't you? Hannibal's the guy you need to back. Oh man. Okay, let's see how this plays out.
When Hanno II stood up to speak, a heavy silence fell upon the room. He was an immensely powerful aristocrat and a veteran commander, albeit not a very competent one. Most of his wealth and political power was derived from his stake in the silver mines of Iberia and the heavy taxation he imposed on African tribes that lived on the vast expanses of land which he owned. As such, in the Senate he represented the interests of the wealthy, for whom it was profitable to sue for peace with Rome, even with unfavorable terms for Carthage, because a peace agreement would enable Hannah...
Yeah, again, the thing is about the Carthaginians is that they hired mercenaries. They weren't a warlike or militaristic empire or group of people like the Romans. You know, they valued their strength is in their economic abilities, their trade. And obviously when war's happening, you can't really do that well, huh? So it's like, let's just end the war. But I'm like, guys, Hannibal's right there. He's the best chance you have at winning. Go all in on Hannibal. I'm sorry. Oh boy, I just know things are about to go awful right now.
And his supporters to assume their maritime commercial operations. In addition, their interests in rare metals is the reason why Hanno favored redirecting reinforcements to protect Iberia, and why he preferred territorial expansion not into Italy, but into Africa, where he and his powerful friends stood to profit from expanding their already endless tracts of taxable land. These discrepancies between the interests of the super-wealthy and the war effort of Carthage was what made Hanno the leading opponent of the Barca family and their war of conquest in Italy. He addressed Mago. You say the armies of the enemy are slain, yet you ask for more soldiers. You say the enemy camps are looted, yet you ask for corn and funds. I wonder, if you ask for all of this help, is Hannibal truthful about his victories? If he is, then I say he doesn't need help from us, and if he is not, then he doesn't deserve it. At hearing this, senators from the docks behind Hanno cheered him on. He continued, You say, Mago, that Roman power is annihilated, and that Italy is in a state of revolt. I ask you then, has a single Roman or any of the 35 tribes come to our side? No, they have not, Mago replied. Hanno went on. Then there are still too many Romans left. Do you know then, Mago, is the enemy's will to fight broken? Have they approached Hannibal for peace? I do not know, Mago answered. A truthful answer, given that he parted ways with Hannibal soon after the Battle of Cannae, and was unaware if any negotiations with Rome were taking place. Well then, Hanno concluded, with many Romans still in the fight, and no treating of peace, you have made no progress since the start of the war. I say, if Hannibal's victories are true, he should seek terms with Rome, and not ask for help from Carthage. For if he—
Oh my, these guys want to lose. I swear, Carthage wants to lose. Hanno's gonna get his way. Oh boy, I hate this Hanno dude already. Yeah, Carthage wants to lose this war, huh? I'm getting the impression they want to lose, man. If they only had a united front behind Hannibal, who knows, but, man.
If he cannot obtain peace after his supposed victories, what terms will he be able to obtain if his fortunes against the Romans change? It seems to—
Do none of the Carthaginians understand that the Romans don't surrender? Like, it's amazing. Hannibal was expecting them to come to terms. If Hanno is thinking, hey, why aren't they even coming to peace? It's like, you guys knew the First Punic War. They lost like 3 navies and they just rebuilt it. They lost like thousands upon thousands of men and they just rebuilt it. Like, don't they understand? You think they would understand better than anyone? Rome doesn't give up. You could literally massacre all of them, and they, as long as there's still a few, they'll still keep fighting. Like, oh my goodness. Carthage. Oh my gosh. Mago came here. Mago? Margot? I keep saying Margot, but there's no R. But like, either way, it's like, man, he comes with this great pitch. It's like sound strategy, sound plan, sounds perfect. And then this dude shows up, and it's like, oh my gosh, I hate. I'm so upset.
To me, that we are not discussing peace, but only talking about helping the agenda of one man, Hannibal. Hanno clearly showed in this senatorial meeting why he was one of the most capable orators of his time. But as clever as he was in discrediting Hannibal, the supporters of the Barkids were outraged, and they had every...
Dude, legit though, I'd be like, well, they're like, we want to win the war. Hannibal's literally the best guy to win. Look at how much he accomplished with so little. Imagine he had a huge army. Imagine what he could accomplish. And then, like, eventually, later on in the Second Punic War, Carthage is, like, under attack, and they're like, Hannibal, please, come and save us, and Hannibal has to leave Italy. Like, oh my gosh, you brought it on yourselves, like... And then they were stupid enough to have a third Punic War, which they just got completely annihilated. Man.
Reason to be. Hanno insisted that Carthage must negotiate with Rome, that peace was necessary, thereby implying that Carthage should not and cannot risk the consequences of losing the war, but must make peace now, while the going is good. If this fear of defeat ever reached the enemy, for the Romans it would be like smelling blood. Despite their setbacks against Hannibal, with such division among Carthage's top officials, the Romans would know that they had already won the war. So it's needless to say that Hanno's dissemination of this dangerous rhetoric directly undermined Carthage's war effort and perhaps its future as an imperial power.
Yeah, Hanno sucks. I did not like that guy already. Again, guys, I like Hannibal. I mentioned this on and off throughout the series, but Hannibal Barca is my favorite military commander. Some would say Julius Caesar, others would say Alexander the Great, others would say Napoleon. For me, Hannibal. Hannibal's the guy, my favorite. And so, like, I'm like upset. I'm like, man, if only you people, if only Carthage had just thrown everything they could to back him up. It's like oh my gosh. Yeah, Hanno has probably screwed over Carthage with this more than anyone could ever, right? Man.
As Hannibal once said to his men, war is won by those who are ready to conquer or die. And Rome had already shown its readiness to conquer or perish. Carthage, having chosen to walk the path of empire for 600 years, had to show that same resolve if it was to be victorious and retain its imperial status.
Of course, they needed that they needed to be more Roman, to put it nicely, right? They needed to take this aggression. This is live or die. The Romans are operating on that mindset. There's no surrender. We either live or die. Carthage is like, some of them are walking the line, like, oh, maybe we could afford to, stop. It's like, no, you need to go in completely to the bitter end. Man.
Hannibal's supporters further argued that, as the only man who showed consistent success in command, deep in enemy territory no less, he must be supported, even if Iberia was lost. In their
Agreed. He's the only Carthaginian to ever do this great against the Romans.
view, to conquer a peace agreement at the gates of Rome meant that the withdrawal of Roman troops from Iberia could be demanded as a condition during negotiations, and Carthaginian dominance over the western Mediterranean could be restored.
With so many choices on Booking.com, there are so many Tina Feys I could be. So I hired Body.
Amidst this ongoing political turmoil in Carthage, the majority of the Senate was nevertheless impressed enough with Mago's report to vote in favor of sending him back to Italy with an army and funds to aid Hannibal. A host of 12,000 African infantry, up to 6,000 Numidian cavalry, and around 40 elephants were to be assembled. But Hanno's political tentacles reached across the empire, and he would severely slow down the recruitment of Hannibal's reinforcements at every turn.
Oh my gosh, this idiot. This stupid man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay.
Prolonging the process for around 6 months. Then, as the latter days of autumn brought with them the scent of the stinging coldness that was just around the corner, a message arrived from Sardinia. It was from Hampsicora of Cornus, a Sardo-Punic political leader and one of the richest landowners of Sardinia. Much of the island was still dominated by the Punic elite, especially along the western and southern coasts, which were part of the Carthaginian Empire for over 250 years, until Sardinia came under Roman control just 20 years ago, in 237 BC. This resulted in a strained relationship between the Romans and Sardinia's ruling class and its population. Occasional clashes flared up, but the legions were largely able to keep the peace and exploit the island's rich resources of grain, salt, wine, and olives, as well as several big mining operations of gold and silver, a valuable source for minting new currency, and lead, which was used in various fields of civil life, from crockery to water pipes. But most importantly, Sardinia was a vital point for controlling access to Roman waters and could serve to intercept Carthaginian shipping to the south. However, the situation was now ripe for revolt. The ambassadors that carried the message pleaded for help, and the Carthaginian Senate made a decision to mobilize another army of 12,000 infantry and 1,500 horse to be sent to Sardinia under the command of Hasdrubal the Bold. Meanwhile, on the restive island, Hampsicora was joined by Hanno of Tharos. Their combined force motivated more cities.
There sure is a lot of Hannos in Carthage, huh? Hasdrubal, Hanno, Hannibal, a lot of HAs, you know.
To rise up, and some of the inland tribes pledged their support as well. Rebellion in Sardinia had begun. News of the unrest had reached Praetor Quintus Mucius Scaevola, a member of the ancient and noble patrician family. He immediately sent word back to Rome, asking for help. The Roman legion under his command was under strength due to sickness that he too suffered from and was unable to perform his duties. Provisions and payments for the troops were irregular amidst the chaos of the war, which only made the situation worse. Upon receiving his message, the Roman Senate hurriedly sent Titus Manlius Torquatus with a small contingent and provisions to patch up the legion in Sardinia. Titus was a distinguished Roman politician, twice a consul in 235 and 224 BC, and a member of the Manlia family, one of the most important patrician families of the Republic. Once he disembarked at Cagliari, Titus temporarily assumed command, bringing news that more reinforcements would come next spring. But upon learning of the activities of the rebels, he realized that he would not be able to hold out through the winter. The legion was still under strength and in poor health. Worse, once the Sardo-Punic army fully mobilized, they would outnumber the Romans at least 2-1, and this ratio would rise to 4-1 if the Carthaginians managed to reach the island before winter. Something needed to be done now, so Titus took provisions to last a few days and gathered no more than 6,000 men that were fit to march towards Cornus. Meanwhile, Hampsicora journeyed into the Sardinian interior to recruit troops from the tribes that declared their support for the uprising. He left his son Hiostus in charge of the 10,000-strong army and the collection of provisions until he returned. But Titus was closing in fast. On approach, the numerical advantage of the Sardo-Punic army was clear. Tucked in between the sea to the west and the hills to...
Alright, so we're gonna be seeing another enemy of Rome minus Hannibal fight, and if I'm gonna predict anything, Titus is about to give... I think Titus might just pull it off. I don't know why I'm thinking that. It's just like, we don't really have a great track record with people fighting Rome outside of Hannibal, except that one battle with the Gauls who, you know, basically sneaked attacked and destroyed that one Roman army. But that was just one. So far, none of the Carthaginians outside of Hannibal have pulled off a win. So if he does, I will say, wow, I will be shocked if Histos wins, but I don't know. Knowing Rome, I think Titus might win. Well, let's find out if I'm right.
To the east, they held a strong position with the walls of Cornus behind them. But Titus observed that the enemy was not in full battle order, and that no archers were manning the walls. It appeared as if they were not expecting a battle. He ordered the Roman line forward.
When you have rheumatoid arthritis, the smallest things can feel like the biggest obstacles. But
all too aware of the poor physical condition of his men, Titus slowed the advance to a crawl, making it easier for his tired troops to maintain their formation. He had hoped that by closing the distance he would unnerve the enemy and force them into committing themselves forward. If the Sardo-Punic troops broke formation to charge, this would give the compact Roman legion a chance. But Hiostus's orders were not to attack. Titus gradually halted his advance a mere stone's throw away from the opponent, yet they wouldn't move. Understanding that it would be impossible to dislodge a more numerous and better rested army from their defensive position, the Roman general resorted to harsh language. He berated Hiostus, questioning his bravery and his manhood. Some of the centurions joined in with their own insults. The laughter of the Roman troops could be heard inside the city.
Okay, Hiostus. You have a great defensive position. You just really need to hold your line, because Titus knows he can't just dislodge you. You literally have a win. And I have a feeling he's going to stupidly ruin his advantage.
The young Sardo-Punic aristocrat was fuming. After a few minutes of this verbal barrage, he could take no more. With their pride bruised, Hiostus's men attacked with zest. The weary Roman line bore the initial brunt of the charge with some difficulty, but they held their nerve, encouraged by experienced centurions to stay compact behind their shields until the enemy ran out of steam. Titus then gave the signal. The formation of the less disciplined Sardo-Punic troops quickly began to crumble against the advance of the veteran legionaries. Step by step, the Roman line trod forward, jabbing at the enemy from behind the wall of shields. It soon became clear that Hiostus's rash attack for the sake of saving face in front of his men was a bad decision. By attacking the Roman line, he abandoned his strong defensive position and trapped his own army between the enemy, the hills and the sea, and the walls of the city. Unable to escape, 5,700 Sardo-Punic troops, some 60% of his army, were cut down, but the exhausted Romans could fight no more and had begun taking losses as well. Seeing that his men are at their limit, Titus pulled back. The Roman victory at Cornus did not succeed in destroying one Sardo-Punic army before another one could be assembled, but it gave Titus some time to prepare for the next encounter. Many of his men died on the way back due to exhaustion and sickness, but Titus's swift action killed off some of the best troops that the rebel cities could levy and had put a dent in the morale of the Sardo-Punic army. Whatever troops Hampsicora recruited from the other cities and tribes further inland, he would now likely be more inclined to wait for the Carthaginian army to come to his aid than to take on the Romans himself. For now, the Roman army in Sardinia held on. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy our...
Yeah, that was a frustrating episode. First, Hanno's antics in the Senate, which, like, oh... I don't think I've ever been that aggressive towards anyone we've watched in any of these series. I'm like, just... Yeah, I'm sorry, I got emotional right there. Just, like, annoying. And once again, I was kind of right, like, you know... Carthaginians aren't that great with fighting Romans unless you're Hannibal, so... Yeah, not another kind of L for Carthage. I guess we're just gonna be covering mainly what Carthage is doing now. I guess it seems to me that the main battles of Hannibal are over, right? But, I guess we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.